Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum, boys and girls. And welcome to the first live streaming podcast, episode 76 of Raw Islam on YouTube. Yay! We're streaming live on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. We are here. And honestly, as far as live interactions go tonight, I'm not expecting a lot, but it's okay. We're here and we're live. If you're first hearing this, make sure you head over to our YouTube channel, which is Ven Network, and you subscribe. And when you subscribe, make sure you click that handy dandy little bell so that you get alerts for when we're live and doing this show. Because here we are tonight, live on YouTube, streaming for the world, public. Yay us! So, yeah, there we are. I'll tweet this link out shortly so that you guys, so hopefully anybody on Twitter can come and join us. Not that anybody's listening right now. But here we are, episode 76 of the Raw Islam podcast, starring the hardest working imam that I know, Imam Azhar.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to our listeners tonight from a new platform, YouTube. We welcome you all to our episode tonight. As Carl said, this is episode 76, and SubhanAllah, that's amazing. You know, it was a journey that started with a thought, and never did we ever assume or think that we would be here today. And this is all due to you and your interest in conversations that break down topics, bring them to the floor that they can be discussed in a civil manner, and walk away with some constructive tools that could help make yourself and your world better. We have an array of distractions in our midst and surrounding us on a daily basis. And what we try to do here is not to simplify the news or to make it palatable, Our goal is to make sure that we write from the perspective of Islam, to understand the guidelines that guide us when it comes to dissecting and understanding these issues. And last but not least, the takeaways from it. What does it mean to me, and how can I be a part of it, like it or not? So, Carl, you always send out a poll. That was one of the made for this season that we began, that we want to interact more with the listeners and send out a poll on Twitter. And it was based on one of the polls that we are here with you tonight on YouTube. So, Carl, tell us, what was the decision made on the poll this week, and what were the questions that were asked, and tell us how they can find you and access that poll. Carl?
I suppose I have to turn up my microphone for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to join us and take part in this show, you can head over to Twitter look for Ven Network, VENNNETWORK, and every Monday throughout the course of the day, depending on how energetic I'm feeling, we will send out a poll on what this week's show is going to be. And of course, this week we sent out a poll, and we sent it out. It ran for 24 hours, and we have our final results. And this week, based on your feedback, what we are going to talk about, and let me just flip this over, we are going to discuss by a poll of 50%. That's what was killing me, is I don't think we've ever seen a dead split like this. We are going to discuss vaccines, yay or nay. Is the internet always right? Should we not be vaccinating our children? And the other winner this week was truth or fake news, and this was added to the poll based on the national emergency that we are in. Is this fake news? Is it real news? Is there a real national emergency? And of course, our third option, which nobody voted for, is always our potpourri one, which is, what's the deal with, and that's where you guys can vote and you guys can figure out what we talk about that day. Actually, no, I lied. If what's the deal with ever wins, it is strictly going to just be us talking about whatever we want to talk about, because that's the way that works. And so now that we know what our poll is, we will be discussing vaccinations, yes or no, and we will also be discussing fake news or the truth. Let's go back to the Imam of the hour, Imam Azhar.
Well, thank you, Brother Carl, for putting that forward for our listeners and allowing them to understand what the poll is, what the process is, and what the discussion is tonight. Fellow friends, vaccination is a topic that is very close to many of us, especially those who have children, and especially those who fear an adverse reaction to vaccinations. Before we talk about the Islamic perspective, we need to understand where Islam's. Before we talk about the Islamic perspective, we want to understand vaccinations in our world. We know that our society globally, especially in those countries where vaccines are provided in a way that they're somewhat enforced, such as here in America, your children cannot go to school unless they have their vaccines, or if they have a letter from religious clergy that says that they're exempted from those vaccines. And FYI, for those who are listening and know that, let it be known that there is some talk that a law may be passed, that there will be no waiver of getting away from vaccine, regardless if it's religious grounds or otherwise. And I think one of the cases that will support that is the current outbreak of measles here in America. We do have cases up in Washington, D.C., and we even had a case close to home here in Texas, North Texas, where I live. So the point is that vaccines have been going on for quite a while. They've helped to combat polio, malaria, meningitis, chickenpox, and measles. Measles was one of those diseases that they could say outright that measles was completely annihilated. There was no more measles cases in the world. I think that was the late 80s or early 90s. But now we see a return of measles. The question then becomes, why is it coming back and how is it coming back? Some will say, well, it's because of those people who don't vaccinate. They are vulnerable or susceptible to gain this malaria, and thus they could spread it to others who are not vaccinated. But the question is, where do you draw the line? Because I feel that we all have been vaccinated. I remember back in the days in the 60s or the 50s or even the 70s, people in back home countries, if you see their arm, their forearm, there is like this round tattoo type of thing. It's got all these puncture holes in it. And that was one of those, I don't know what those type of needles were, but maybe it was just like a one-stop shop where they give you one needle and that was like multiple different injections in one. That's what I assume it to be. I know my father has it. I know other members of the family who have it. So that was a time where these epidemics plagued the world, and people were dying in large numbers. I don't think our current generation has seen anything of that in the last 10, 20 years. The only thing that came close, I think, was swine flu, and that too was resolved with a vaccination that was produced, and it was contained from spreading globally. There were cases, but those cases were also contained. And we really don't hear about N1H1, I think was the medical term for swine flu. So the question is, what is necessary and what is not? You know, some people take vaccines because there's a history of things that have occurred and they're likely to occur again. And one is a vaccine for something that you just don't want to face in the future. There are many such vaccines that are being introduced into our world, preventing people from getting hepatitis B, I think it is, or I don't know if it's herpes or whatever else. There's different types of things that we can inflict on ourselves. People are taking those type of injections to prevent them from. And again, that's really where Islam comes into the role. Islam believes in taking care of health. Taking care of your body, taking care of your health is a mandate. It's not a choice. It's not an opinion or a thought or an option for you on the table. You need to take care of your health. And preventative care is better than, curing once something happens. So preventative measures are important. And if any vaccine falls into the category of preventative when something is known, it is permissible. But then to go and vaccinate yourself for something that you may want to indulge in and fear that you may contract something isn't really preventative. It is jumping off a cliff without a bungee cord, hoping that you're going to be saved. And it's a very touchy subject. And I'm not a mufti here or a jurist to make these type of decisions, but I'm trying to give you an outline of what vaccines are and where Islam stands. If a person says they don't want to vaccinate their child, especially when in their area or in the close proximity of where they reside, certain illnesses or ailments are on the rise or they exist, you threaten your child's life that they may contract malaria, meningitis, or any type of illness which can, if not kill them, disable them for life. And I don't think that's a right thing to do, especially when vaccines are on the table. The reason religion came into play is because how religions saw it. Some religions saw it to be a curse of the devil. Some thought this was just a trick. This was a way of getting into the bodies of people. And again, all conspiracies aside, Islam is about hard facts. And when we have hard facts and we have numbers to prove something, then we will follow that. If there's hard facts or numbers tomorrow to prove that every person that's being vaccinated in America and around the world is susceptible to autism, mental disorders, body issues after the vaccine, and there is credible cases that streamline across the spectrum, then we could even go out to say it's prohibited. But there are cases of autism. There are cases of children who didn't have an issue, and then after vaccination, they started developing this issue. It's all possible. Is it directly connected or is it indirectly connected? Directly connected means the vaccine itself caused it or triggered it, or the vaccine in combination with their current health and what they ate or how they lived, whatever it was that contributed towards it happening. It's still up in the air. So a definitive stance is not possible to say that it is forbidden by Islam or it's wrong to do, because until now, vaccines were produced and created to prevent future harm of currently existing diseases that plagued our world and showed what it can do. Thus, a person should take them and should not shy out from taking them and use their religion as an excuse not to, because you're making yourselves and your children vulnerable in a time where these diseases are making a comeback. Carl, you told me something before we started about Philippines and a crisis in Philippines of malaria. I was saying malaria.
Measles. It was measles.
And measles was something that, Carl and I were talking before the show. I got my chicken pox and I got my measles, and I remember those distinctly, having that pink. We used to have this pink liquid. I forgot the name of that liquid. It was a pink liquid.
It was an antibiotic. Or you mean the calamine lotion?
Calamine lotion. You get that, cotton, and then of course you just dab it everywhere that you had chicken pox and you look like Pink Panther. Yep. That's why Pink Panther was so hip back in the days, because when you had chicken pox, you were practically pink, and so you could assimilate yourself with Pink Panther, that, hey, we're buddies or something, or kind of following the trend. But yeah, the calamine lotion was there to prevent that itching and scarring which would occur due to chicken pox. But Carl, measles is making a comeback, and it's scary, especially for those who don't know what it is. It's very scary. Could you explain to us what's happening in the Philippines?
So what I saw, and kind of a prelude to our fake news or real news, I just wanted to share that before I share that, I just wanted to share that one of my favorite things is the video on YouTube, If Google Was a Person.
Mm-hmm.
And this woman comes in and sits down at Google's desk, and she's like, vaccines bad, vaccines harmful. And of course, Google being a person, he hands her these huge stack of paperworks. This huge stack of paper, and he's like, here's 9,991 reports saying that vaccinations are not harmful. And then she says a few more things, vaccines, autism. And he goes, okay, I have one report written by a guy who lives in his mom's basement. And the woman reaches over the desk and grabs that one report and goes, aha, I knew it. But what I saw on Twitter earlier today is that there's a measles outbreak in the Philippines because people are not getting their vaccinations. And now, of course, people are running to the doctor to get their vaccination because it's already out there. And it matches the outbreaks that we're seeing in Oregon and in Washington State, just because there's a whole anti-vaxxer movement over there. And it's just, modern science was given to us for a reason. And it wasn't to snub it because somebody knows better than somebody else. So,
Brother Carl, when people go to Saudi Arabia, they have to get a meningitis shot. It's something that it's called Menactra, I think it is. It needs to be taken every 10 years for a young adult, and every 5 years for anyone over 55 or 65, I think it is. And people get sick in Saudi Arabia. Understand people coming from all over the world, bringing different things with them through their clothing, respiratory system when they cough it out. And it's a mandate. Without that, you don't get your visa. Some people may say, okay, there's a problem with it. Instead of working on the key problem, which I myself understand is a problem, and that is in the vaccine itself, there's some ingredients which are not suitable to our dietary restrictions. There's pork and there's different other things which are within the vaccine. There's an option. The option is work with the medical community to come up with a vaccine that does not have those things. See, here we're fighting vaccine or no vaccine. The energy that's being wasted could have actually brought the energy together and said, if not this vaccine or that vaccine, if not this vaccine or the absence of that vaccine, let's create a vaccine that we are on the same page and we're comfortable. Now, if people are comfortable, not only are they going to take it, but they're going to encourage others to take it also. It just makes sense. So, I know of a doctor who commented once there was a chat about this. We're going to Hajj and we took this vaccine. It's going to be in our system and our prayers are not going to be accepted. Well, why don't you take the vaccine weeks, if not months before, especially when you know you have to go? It's valid for 10 years if you're under 55, and it's valid for 5 years if you're over it. I believe it's 55. So why don't you take advantage of that and do it before? Why? Because once you get that vaccination, not only does your arm become sore, but then of course you develop a low-grade fever, sometimes a higher fever, and it takes time for it to work into your system. So question is, why don't we work with things? See, this is exactly where religion is being used as a tool, Carl, and that's what I'm scared about. We use the religion as a tool to demonize something or discredit something or to call out something, not understanding that our religion just didn't do that. If it pointed something wrong, it pointed to something wrong with something better. It's like, you know what? If this is wrong, I'm not going to say this is wrong. I'm going to say this is better. And by saying this is better, you will automatically push this wrong aside. But if I keep on calling things out, these vaccines are wrong, or this is a conspiracy from the government and X, Y, and Z, when we don't have, remember my words, when we don't have hard and fast evidence backing our claim, there's a problem. And so, going back to this malaria and meningitis, there's one of my very dear families from Florida who, you know, we had an honor to visit recently, and their daughter has meningitis. And when she had it, when she got it back home, it ate away on her brain. So she's restricted to a wheelchair. And a part of her brain is gone now because of how this thing happened. I'm not saying vaccination would have prevented her from getting it. It's Allah's decree, and we accept it, so long we do what's in our part, what's in our ability. But you have to understand that the aftermath, when Allah forbid someone gets afflicted with such a thing, then it's too late. It's too late to say, man, I wish I did it, or let me do it now. Now the vaccine's not going to work. Because the vaccine, and I'm not a medical doctor here, but do ask and confirm or negate what I'm going to say. It has a bit of the virus itself within it. And by injecting into your immune system, your body finds it to be a foreign agent. It's like an intruder. You know, Trump supporters will understand it. It's like someone crossing the border illegally, and there was no wall. So now it's inside your system. What are you going to do? Your whole body runs towards it. Your immune system chases it down, and it starts attacking it. And so when it starts attacking that virus, the virus tries to spread, but the immune system works hard and fast to actually contain it and to suppress it and to finish it. Sometimes you get a fever because your body's literally burning that thing out. So, sorry for my Trump supporters, I just wanted to kind of give an analogy that would kind of make sense. But anything that comes into your body which your body's not used to, not only does it attack it when it sees it to be a potential harm, now it's got it on its watch list. Okay, guys, if this thing ever comes into the body, you know what to do to it. So there's a plan of action in place. So God forbid polio, malaria, meningitis, measles, chickenpox, or anything else comes into the body again after having the taste of it through the vaccine, it knows what to do, and with Allah's help, it'll be fine. So I'll just say, you know what? Religion has been misused on many fronts, many fronts, and one of the many fronts that it's been misused is to justify or negate certain medical procedures, which based on our preference, not our faith, we use, abuse, misuse to validate it. And to me, that's dangerous.
I guess there's really nothing to follow that with except SubhanAllah. Well, you know, the one thing, and this is totally not related to anything at all. It's one of these things for me that I always find overly amusing. Not in a funny way, just in an intriguing way, is you're talking and I can hear the adhan for Isha or Maghrib.
It's going to be Isha, and that's at 8 now. So
yeah, but I can hear your adhan for Isha. Mine went off like an hour ago or more, and I always find that amusing. I was just like, wow, SubhanAllah. But anyway,
what 1 hour time zone could do.
Yep.
1 hour.
But yeah, I mean, SubhanAllah, and you know, there is one place, and this is from personal experience, and you know, we can talk about it some other time because I see we're almost at 25 minutes here. But one of the things that, you know, you talk about religion, and we're not here to defame any other religion or any other faith, but you know, there are some religions like the Christian Scientists who legit don't take vaccinations. They legit just don't use them. They don't believe in them, and they only believe in the healing power of Allah, God, and I mean that is what they believe. And you know, I think when you start passing laws saying that, you know, regardless of your religious belief, you have to do this, I think you get into kind of a dangerous territory versus...
That's where religious freedom is being challenged. Understand that. Where people are going to be told, regardless of your belief, your sensitivities, your thoughts, your ideas, it's going to be imposed on you. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. But at the same time, it is dangerous when we use faith or anything else as an excuse to bypass it. Understand? Just say there is a parking spot outside of Babies R Us, and there is, or they used to be. For the kids who don't know, Babies R Us was an extension to Toys R Us, and Toys R Us was the heaven of toys this world has ever seen. This was the heaven of toys, and no one will be able to come close to it any time in my life, I think, even if it's an online store. It was a wonderful place to be. And
Yeah,
so,
but you see, when I was a kid, we had to wait for the Sears Christmas catalog to come, and that was how we looked at toys. We didn't have fancy stores with brick and mortar.
so basically, the Sears catalog ricochets across this nation. Anyone, anywhere can talk about the Sears catalog. The spring catalog and the winter catalog, the Christmas one, that was like, it was big as a phone book. And I tell you, that thing was amazing. But like they have a space outside of their, sorry, they used to have a space outside of their store which said for expecting mothers, i.e. it's a baby store. Mothers who are expecting are going to go in looking for things for their baby, and so why not? Now here's a lady who comes to parks because she just gave birth to a baby 2 weeks ago. She's like, you know what? I need to park closer. Or there's someone who is expecting to get pregnant but hasn't got pregnant yet, but they're expecting to become a mother, so they're just going to park there. It's like people who use their uncle or aunts or grandmother or grandfather's disabled badge to put it in their car so they could park in the disabled section of the mall or the stadium or the theme park. Now, let me say one thing on that. When these type of abuses are perpetrated and they're seen happening over and over and over again, what do you think is going to happen? See, when we see an extreme to one end, we're going to see the opposite extreme as a response to the previous extreme. And so it's dangerous. It's dangerous to see what the future holds when it comes to, imposing certain things on people. And we're seeing it now. You cannot circumcise a baby anymore in Belgium. You cannot even eat halal or kosher food. Halal and kosher food have been banned from the country, where people are being told there's only one option. You like it, you take it. You don't, then tough luck. America is a land where all the options of all people, of all cultures, and for those who may not accept, go to Walmart and go in an aisle that has ethnic food. Maybe you don't understand what that is. It's food from around the world. There's Jewish food, Asian food, British food, Mexican food, and so many other types of food varieties in that aisle for people who want to get a touch of those ethnic cultural backgrounds. So when you go into any of these places, you see that. The point I'm trying to say is that America is the land where all these options and choices are respected and brought to the table of diversity, which makes us unique. If any one of us abuses our option on the table of being present to demonizing other options or discrediting them or pushing their cupcakes or their churros or their halwa or anything else off the table to say, my cupcakes are legit and everything else is wrong, that's going to be problematic. It's going to be dangerous, and we don't want that here. And that's why, without going to fake news or politics, because that was another topic that hit 50-50 on our poll this week, which was discussion of fake news and the discussion of vaccine. But for those who are first-time listeners, you are on the Venn Network YouTube channel, and if you scroll back a few episodes, we did talk about fake news, and we talked about how important it is to accredit what it is that you hear, what you say. Before you say it, because you heard it, it's imperative that you verify it. If you don't verify it, you're contributing towards a problem that the world is demonizing other people for. And just to touch on that, Carl, and I'll end with this tonight, for those who are calling other people fake news, and they have a theory, and they call that legitimate fact, while someone like me is saying that's a lie, let me tell you all something. We're living in a world where the lie has been made the truth. And I promise you, if those people were to take a polygraph test, they wouldn't be pointed out. It would actually correspond with their ways and beliefs, because we have entered a new phase in this world where a lie is actually taken on as the truth, and it's believed so much to be the truth that it's actually the truth. And what we see to be the truth and what we know to be the truth has been demonized so much that it's actually become false. So add this to the segment we had earlier, focus on it, reflect on it, spread discussion and dialogue, because our goal here in Raw Islam is to create dialogue, to start the ripple effect. You, the listeners, have the responsibility to take it forward throughout the world. Carl?
And that brings us to the end of episode 76 of the Raw Islam podcast. If this is your first time seeing this podcast or hearing about this podcast, feel free to go over to vennetwork.org, where all our episodes are listed, along with several other shows, which is really great content that we enjoy bringing you. And speaking about bringing you great content, we are on Patreon. If you would like to support the network, support the shows, support the hosts, and if getting some swag is more along your lines, head over to our store on Amazon, where you can get cool t-shirts like the one I'm wearing, because you know, what better way to show your support than, you know, wearing our logo. And, yeah, I had something I was going to add to that, but I have changed my mind. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here on social media. We'll say YouTube for now, because we're going to try this for a couple of weeks. We are here on YouTube live on Tuesday nights. Thank you all for joining us this evening. I know we had a couple of viewers. Chat room was quiet, but we had a couple of viewers. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for taking part in the poll this week. Make sure you subscribe and share. And if this is your first time subscribing to the network, make sure you hit the bell when you subscribe. That way you'll get alerts on your phone. I got one on my phone. It was pretty cool. And until next week, we will say salam tik to Imam Azhar.
Thank you.
And we will say assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.